Oops. Welcome, everybody, to episode 220 of Live at the Hive Digital Marketing from the Trenches. I am one of your hosts, Dan Nadelko.
I'm Yvonne.
And I'm Justin.
Awesome. And today we are talking about going beyond lead gen, how to actually engage with your leads, turn them into prospects. While we're waiting for everybody, the teeming masses to flow into the live, I think one of the things, that we see a lot of is everybody talks about lead gen, talk about, I need more leads, I want to grow my business. But then what happens is leads get generated and maybe there's one touch point, there's one contact. And that.
Oh no. He's trying.
Yeah, he's trying. It's coming out slowly.
There you go, you're back.
There you go, you're back. Yeah.
Jeez.
I thought I fixed it today, but I guess I didn't. All right. Well, did I do the wiki? Did I sound like I was like being remixed? Or did I just kind of stop? Yeah. All right. So let's do that again one more time. So one of the things that we see with lead gen is businesses are really focused. They want more leads. They need more leads. I've got to get more leads. But once the lead is acquired, maybe there's one touch point, maybe one outreach, sometimes even a phone call immediately after a lead, which in the case of local service businesses, that totally makes sense. But in the world of B2B and in the world of more complex sales, we really want to look at a process for ongoing engagement, relationship building, how you get that person from, a lead magnet, which is really top of funnel, right down to a relationship and then hopefully a sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Welcome, everybody. Get Cyber says, Dan the man. Hello, I'm the one, Dan, one of the men, I guess, or the men's. I have no idea. Anyhow, welcome, Dan Duran. Thanks for joining us. And like I said, as we wait for the teeming masses to flow into the chat. So Yvonne, you've done a lot of work on our lead gen program. So did you want to kick us off here, my friend?
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of want to discuss, when you get your leads, a lot of people think, that's the battle is like already won when really you've only just begun. And a lot of people, they don't really want to really do anything. They get the leads and like, oh yeah, I've got them. And then they'll just kind of push them through this generic funnel that, hopefully they come out to be a customer and things like that. And that's not necessarily the case. You got to kind of nurture them through, more than just that. And again, you don't also want to be quick to act as well, because people are going to be scared. If you're like what we're talking about is investing, you're like, oh, here, give me thousands of dollars and we'll just get you right in the door. You're like, well, no, I don't even know who you are. And it's like you've got a whole bunch of things that you want to discuss. So we want to kind of go through that and show you ways that you can take those leads and really make them to a customer.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other important thing that we want to look at is, this is relationship building. It's just a matter of the type of channel that you're dealing with. We're dealing with digital channels, but I think you need to approach it from the same way that you would if you were networking in real life, if you were meeting people in real life. You want to map those relationships over to the online world and create that personalization. And in this live, what we started to do is actually using use cases and scenarios. Welcome, Yagna. Hello. Thank you for joining. And one more thing, just before we start, if you are watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on Twitter, please hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment, ask a question. And if you're watching this and we are not live, you're watching post live, which is where we get the majority of our views. If you have a question, leave a comment. We do monitor the comments, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Cool. So today, So today our use case is actually going to be, we just picked something randomly out of the air. We're going to talk about the financial services industry. So in this use case, what we're talking about here is a financial advisor, and you've probably seen these folks on LinkedIn. I want to help you with your financial future. Very broad and very personal, right? Your finances are extremely personal. People tend to be very protective of that. So it's a hard thing to say generate a lead, for example, because you're talking about what my financial position is today, where I want it to be tomorrow. Do I have debt? Do I have an investment portfolio? And again, if you think about your entire financial future just as a use case, that's a lot, right? You're packing a whole lot in there. So when you talk about lead gen and relationship building in the digital world, I think what we want to do is kind of take a lens to that and give some concepts and ideas about how you might go about that process.
Yeah, when it comes to people and their money, it's a very tricky subject to navigate because that's a lot of responsibility that they're putting in your hands, and that's why it's so important to, get the right message and help them through this process. Because I'm not just going to give away all this money to these people and hope for the best. They got to really know.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a very good point, Yvonne. Very good point. Okay, so our sample use case today is going to be, let me see, what's a better way to, let's do this one. There we go. Let's get as much of our screen space as we possibly can out of this. In this particular case, we're looking at Dave and Jen, a married couple with 2 kids. Millennials with high paying or at least high trajectory jobs. So we're looking at the technology industry where, they've got a young family now starting out their investment life, and they want to be financially stable when they retire. They want to plan for their kids' education. And just like, and this is the case for a lot of Canadians and Americans, they're probably not fully set up with a full portfolio. One of the things that we do see a lot of today are self-directed investing, things like Wealthsimple, where you might buy a stock here and buy a stock there. Maybe you're putting some regular contributions into some form of an RRSP, but not really a full portfolio. So our use case today is going to be all about a financial advisor who sells a suite of products, including investment portfolios, retirement, savings plans, debt reduction, and how they would target this specific persona and example. But hey, you could map this to several, like for Dan Duran there, you could map this over to cybersecurity. And, what does that mean, right? That's a huge topic as well. So this concept maps from financial services, complex B2B products, cybersecurity, you name it, you can map it. Okay. And that's it. The end.
That's it. You're done.
That's it. We're done. It's over. Starting out, I think one of the most important things, and it kind of sounds like it's a soft skill when you say storytelling, right? It's like, yay, storytelling. But there's actually, and I'm not sure if I have it handy with me right now, but actually one of the 4 pillars of the famous investment company Sequoia. If you're not familiar with Sequoia, they invested back in the 2000s in a few small companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft. They're
small ones.
Yeah, just some small businesses here and there. And they were actually one of their 4 tenets and pillars for investing is actually that there is a story to be told. And we will share the link. I don't have it. I think it's in the presentation, but we'll share it in the chat.
Yep.
It's actually super fascinating about how they approach it, because you would think, hey, they're Sequoia, right? They just want ROI. They want investment returns, but they would not invest in a company if they did not have a story to tell. So Yvonne, I don't know, do you want to touch a little bit on some of the points about really great storytelling?
I was muted there for a second. Sorry. Yes, for sure. Yeah. So people, when it comes to storytelling, people do, especially if we're going to take it in this case, when it comes to your finances and trying to build this portfolio that you want, I think it's a good reason to show your story and show people like what they could achieve through storytelling, right? It gives them that visual representation that they need. It'll be able to invoke the hype through emotion. So sparking the interest, which is of course wanting to be able to financially retire for these people. and then influence the decisions, right? So you're creating this experience for them. So yeah, in this case, they're looking for investment opportunities to help them retire, and by telling a good story, I think that can really solidify whether or not they'll kind of go through with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Justin, even from, I mean, when we talk about design, we talk about a lot of things here, but I think you can tell stories with both visual experiences and the entire design experience as well.
Oh yeah, I think like the content and the visual definitely has to kind of go together, and that's kind of what kind of you get that full story out of it, you know? Like when it comes to like especially finance, you do really want to be able to tell a story because that really invokes like trustworthiness, and like because you are dealing with something that a lot of people like weigh very heavy, you know? So like you do really need to kind of have that kind of full round of like the visuals, tell the story through copy, all that good stuff, just to really kind of drive that trust home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the important things is, we as human beings are driven by stories. So creating a story, and a really famous example of excellent storytelling is the famous book The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. That was all about investing. It was all about, your financial future, but it was done through this narrative storytelling style that, I mean, I don't know how many copies it sold now, but it's millions upon millions upon millions of copies.
Oh yeah.
When you take that story and it relates to a lot of people, you put them in the shoes of them. They're kind of, they're seeing it through their own eyes, right? And they're like, okay, this is me, and then they can kind of follow that story, and then that resonates with them a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And so one of the tips that I've got for people that are thinking about this, if you're thinking about, okay, I've got a lead funnel, I'm putting this thing together, and you can put together your ideal story by quite simply writing out the story of how you would meet, engage with, and you could almost write it out like it's a script, like you're a movie script, and you can do it really easily just with a pen and paper. That can be one of the simplest and yet most effective ways of understanding how to engage your leads. One other tip, I don't want to spend our whole time just on the storytelling side, but another really great way to understand is to interview, just ask your customers, your existing customers, maybe your best customers, your most engaged customers, how did you find us, right? Like how did this whole, if you don't know already, and get into a conversation with them. You could do it via a Zoom call, for example, and just interview them for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just ask them how they went through that process, so you can map out that storytelling narrative using real examples from your very own world. Okay, next up, we have our favorite. This is an all-time favorite. You probably saw a couple of slides ago there, persona development. In our world, we always start with developing personas, right? And ideal personas. So you want to start there. And during that process, what you are going to do is you're going to identify your ideal customers' pain points. Like, what is the thing, what is the itch that they need to scratch? What is the problem that they need to solve? And the reason this is so critically important is because when you can map out and list out all of the pain points and map out a solution, literally side by side, like in a table, pain point, solution, your solutions become your calls to action. They become the headlines. They become the lead magnet, right? And what that does is that allows your marketing, communications, content, assets, everything to map directly from to the user's solution. And that's how you keep on point without talking about you. You want to talk about how you're going to solve their problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I find that really deepens the story too, that you kind of want to portray, is like when you're kind of, if you want to grab like some kind of pain point and tell the story that way, I feel like that really kind of links everything together beautifully.
Yes, for sure. And again, it's really easy when you're in marketing, or you're running a small business, or you're on a big marketing team, is to talk about how great your product is, right? Our new whiz bang feature. Well, the whiz bang feature isn't so whiz bang if it's not solving a customer problem, right? And so, yeah, it's always important to address those pain point and objectives objections first, I should say.
Yeah, and then moving on right from that. So you want to have those engaging CTAs, and to get those, you have to understand your pain points. So like, well, what is the problem here? Now now I can provide a solution with my call to action to them. So that's kind of how it would work. So then when it comes to your CTAs, sometimes it will depend on your audience. So use the language that's going to resonate with them the best. You can use humor, which is always a fun way to kind of bring them in. And then give you rid of that instant gratification that you can also provide them with, right? So if there's a way for them to download those or something specific in this case that will help them with their investment opportunities, like here's a great way to actually show them how we can specifically help you and what we can do for you. Here's who we helped in the past, maybe be like, okay, now I understand. And then just make sure it's clear, like making sure that call to action is a really clear one. And that way it all works out really well for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of my favorite ones here is using the language that your audience identifies with. So if they're millennial and Gen Z, then use that more casual language, right? And that's just a communications nuance that I don't think you're ever going to say I got it, right? Yes, and engaging CTAs. There's a joke in the world of digital marketing, which is do not submit. So that joke is just that the default for any forum button is submit. It is literally a terrible CTA. It's only there as a default. Get rid of it. Also, another terrible one is contact us. The analogy I like to use for contact us is if I call Justin at like 10 o'clock at night and just say, what you doing? What you thinking? Like, what are we talking about here, people? Like, tell me exactly what I'm going to get and create that engaging call to action and copy around that. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk a little bit. I think we're a little bit out of order here, but that's okay because I'll just flip the slides here a bit. Okay. So when you're creating a lead engagement funnel, you start with the top of the funnel. So typically we talk about TOFU, top of funnel, MOFU, middle of funnel, BOFU, bottom of funnel, right? Those kind of three big stages. Lead magnets are a way to create engaging content that solves a problem that is very much top of funnel, right? So when you're at the top of the funnel, there's not a big expectation. You're actually trying to provide a ton of value to your customer that solves a problem and a very immediate problem, so they don't have to process it for too long, right? In the world we live in, a very distracted, social media driven world where a 3-minute TikTok video is considered a commitment, you definitely don't want to make them think too hard.
No.
Exactly.
Okay. So, really good examples. We've done tons of examples of lead magnets. One of my favorites is for one of our clients that sells custom saunas. We actually don't talk about the saunas very much at all, and it's the health benefits of saunas and how they can, do you have asthma? How will this help you? It's one of our probably top performing lead magnets. In the world of finance, just to kind of circle back to what it is we're talking about, if I'm a financial advisor, what are the things I want to talk about, right? Specificity wins. So you want to be very specific. So one of the examples, and I might be co-opting this presentation because it might be in here, but just as no, it's not good. Okay. So in the world of investment, a first step, let's come up, we'll just do this right now. A few specific examples of a lead magnet in the world of finance would be 10 things you need to know about starting an investment portfolio in a bear financial market. So right now we're in a bear market. Things aren't looking so good. There's some international turmoil. Markets are up and down. They're very unstable. And then the question is, people would say, well, now is not the time for me to start an investment portfolio. That's crazy. in reality, if you've got the liquidity to do it, now is a good time to actually start, especially when markets go down. So you could create a 10-step checklist or 10 things to think about. It could be done in video form as well. Video is a great top funnel lead magnet to build audiences, and gives people 10 reasons they really need to start a portfolio today, right? It's extremely specific. It's extremely timely. I don't have to think too hard about it. The other one point I want to make about lead magnets that are very specific is they actually help you pre-qualify your audience in a much more organic way. So for example, if I use that example, I'll give you another example. Another one would be how small business owners can reduce their tax liability using health spending accounts to replace group benefits, right? It's a very specific example. It's only going to apply to small business owners that are feeling that pain point, and they don't have to think about it because who doesn't want to save money on taxes? So that's going to be okay, good. I'm interested in that. So everybody that would fill out that lead magnet is either a small business owner or a business owner that someone that knows somebody that would benefit from this, right? So your first step is in that lead magnet, right? Create those lead magnets, because that's kind of that's the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the spear. A second type of lead magnet is obviously video. Create a really engaging video with a really great hook. And then what you're able to do is build Facebook and Google audiences based on people that have viewed that video. You can then remarket to them with the next step in your funnel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right. So once you have acquired the lead, which is really what this is, what we're talking about, because we talk about.
Pippa has a really good point.
There we go. Like the speed dating.
Yeah, she says lead magnets are like the speed dating of the marketing world.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah,
that's a great way to put it.
No, yeah, and I was gonna say, back to that point with the saunas and the health benefits. The reason that was so good because it's standing out too. People already know, like, these are my saunas, blah blah blah. That's boring. Like the health benefits, that's something that people don't know. That's something that's so unique that people are like, oh, you know what? I don't know that, and that's what you want to find when you make those lead magnets. What do the people like actually want to know versus here's just the generic content that I already know, and that's not gonna really entice me to do anything.
Yeah, and you kind of have to think like people are kind of naturally conceited in a sense. So people want to know like how will it benefit me? And that's what that was really doing, was it was telling them, yeah, this is how it'll benefit them, right? It's not benefiting the company, it's how it benefiting the customer.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than if you see a lead magnet that's here are our top 10 new features. Like, I don't care about your product. And I think it's important that you understand, if you're in marketing and communications, is your customers really don't care about your product, nor should they. They care about how the product solves a problem, right? And if we were to take this to the brand kind of pinnacles, if you look at some of them, Apple, Nike's a great one. Nike, I don't know if it's never, but at least not in the last like 40 or 50 years, Nike has never focused on a product for sale. If you look at any of their marketing, right? I would challenge anybody to tell me what the most popular model name of a Nike running shoe is.
Okay, well, I can do that. Air Force Ones.
Oh, jeez.
I'm sorry.
But what about, like, there's Air Jordan and there's Air Force One, right? Air Jordans, I know, because there's a story behind that with Michael Jordan. Yeah. Right. But they have a whole line of running shoes for long distance runners, but they never, ever focus on advertising those specific ones. They talk about just do it. Right. They tell stories, and that's really where they kind of come out with it. Yeah. So the question then becomes, what's the next thing? You've acquired a lead. They've downloaded this lead magnet. They've registered, or they're in some sort of an audience. You have their email address at that point. So now our good old friend email comes into play, and email is still an incredibly powerful medium. It's something that I think some people are dismissing it as not being part of it, or it's not a really well thought out engagement narrative and not telling a story around this email sequence that will continue to engage people. So some tips on how you can start to engage using email. You could do a 5-day or a 10-day almost boot camp where it's very specific. Again, one nugget of information every day for X days, right? And as you start to track the performance of those, who's opening, who's clicking through, right? But a couple of tips on email sequences, and we'll give you some for specifically for the financial advisor example we're talking about. But an email sequence and writing email is a fine art. Keep the content short and scannable for mobile devices. Don't try to write a wall of text. In this particular case, I would in fact suggest not linking them away unless it's a secondary CTA. The message should be in the email. So instead of me saying, here's my 750 word email that links to my 1400 word blog post about this, give people instant gratification, instant satisfaction. So in the financial advisor model, and we're talking about how to set up your portfolio, it's like, here are the 4 things you need to set up your Questrade account so you're able to invest, or your Scotia Trade or your iTrade, whatever it might be, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to need this. And I want you to do it today, and then hit reply on that email once you've got it done, or hit reply on the email if you are having any trouble. So you're interacting with people in that email sequence. Mm-hmm. You're not being too corporate, not being too stiff as well. That's very, very important. Yep, go ahead. Yvonne.
No, I was just gonna say, like, just providing an example. We with one of our clients that we used to have when it comes to management of wealth, we ended up they always wanted to go with, let me give you a free consultation right away, and people are not. That's just marriage on the first date, right? People don't understand that, and they're like very confused, and they're like, well, I don't really know you. How are you supposed to help me? I just met you. I don't really know. How are you going to provide me any help? And it was just, breaking down that we want to decide, like, when it came to emails, it was like, okay, so why don't we start with, here's a quick tutorial on what we can do for you. And here's some okay. I can't say words. Specific.
It's Friday afternoon. It's okay. Words are hard. Words are
really hard. But here are some specifics on how you can actually help you with your money. And here's the actual example of how we've actually helped people, and then providing them to the emails, and then taking them on a journey like you would, like a story, and how you can actually help them versus just coming right out right. So yeah, emails can still be used very well if they're used correctly, for sure.
Yeah, I actually have like a really good example for like an email sequence. So like but there's this plant store that I'll buy plants from, and after you buy the plants, it's really good for nurturing is they'll actually send you separate emails of like care guides of the exact plants that you bought to kind of like nurture you and being like, okay, like obviously we want to help you keep your plants alive, so here's like a nice little care guide to go with it, which I thought really good.
No, that's a brilliant follow-up sequence. I think that also scratches the itch and the pain point. I think the majority of people like me, I got a 50-50 shot of a plant surviving longer than 2 months with me. It's just, yeah. And so, no, that's a perfect example. Another thing about the email sequence, because it really is at the core of this, you can use text messaging as well, especially in like Justin's case, where it's an e-commerce purchase and you've got some really good information that's very relevant to what they're doing. But one of the keys to success in an email sequence is when people refer back to your emails in the future for reference, right? Then you know that you're providing that value. Pippa's got a really great comment here that I would but I do agree with. Lead magnets should build on someone's knowledge and fill in a gap, not an intense sales pitch. In fact, don't sell yet. Don't be that person, right? Don't be that. I was talking to Andrew earlier today, who wrote up our email today for the live. He said, would it be okay if, when you walk into a store and it's the worst thing in the world, like a salesperson is like right on top of you when you just walk in the door?
Yep.
Who likes that, right?
I want to walk out. I'm like, no, leave me alone. Now I don't want to buy anything because you can't leave me alone. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
The smart salespeople look for the people that either are looking for a salesperson because you can kind of tell, or they have this very confused look on their face,
Yeah.
right? But if you're just wandering through, definitely don't. So let's look at a couple of examples here. Yeah, so we talked about the 5-day sequence. Definitely keep the content in the email. Don't try to say too much. Be very specific, be very scannable, be very quick, and turn it into something where you're telling a story over a period of time that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like any other story would, right? Some of the worst emails I've seen are when businesses will sometimes do this, which is they'll make up their own terms for things that already have names because it's a branding thing. That's a terrible idea. Use the language that the world out there, that your target audience is using, and find all the things that can be helpful.
Yeah, and I wanted
Solutions.
to say a really good reason back to what Justin was mentioning with the plants. So because you bought a certain plant, some people like to, here's a newsletter and here's all the things you learn about plants and all that. Whereas they specifically showed them just the one plant. That's a good, important thing to do. Show them what they actually want to see. They don't want to have to go through a whole bunch of information that's not going to be relevant to them. So just targeting that specific thing that they're looking for is a great thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next tip that we've got here, and obviously we're advocates for live video. Here we are, right? But this is something, and again, I want to reinforce, we're using this financial services example here. Justin's brought in the plant example, which I think is really good from an e-commerce. It's a great tie-in, but it just goes to show you what we are talking about here today maps to any product or service on the planet. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, a doctor, you're selling t-shirts, you're selling widgets, whatever it might be. We just got a question here from Dan Duran, and that's actually an excellent question. What automation tool do you recommend for sequencing emails? So we are somewhat, I'll leave that up actually. We're somewhat partial to ActiveCampaign. And there's reasonings behind that. ActiveCampaign, of any of the marketing automation platforms or email marketing platforms, in my opinion, I think in our opinion, has the absolute strongest automation capabilities of anybody in the market. They've got over something like 240 different triggers. So you have like extreme flexibility in this. Having said that, and I do want to actually add a point about ActiveCampaign. MailChimp can do this. Marketo can do this. Eloqua can do this. Keep going. Mad Meanie can do this. Like, there's so many out there.
Zoho's got an option for that too.
Zoho does. Yeah. Not 100% in love with the Zoho platform, but it is definitely a market player. You can't ignore it for sure. But yes, Zoho can do this as well. That's a great point. On the automation tool, tooling is really important. One of the things that we really love about ActiveCampaign, and this is actually super important, pretty sure everybody can do it. You can actually set up ActiveCampaign in these other platforms. So let's say you're using Gmail, or maybe you're using Office 365. Doesn't matter, right? So if you're on Outlook and Office, or if you're on Gmail and Google Workspace, same thing. All of these platforms allow you to connect your email server details, your personal email server. So if I wanted to send out an email and make it look personalized, I could actually connect my Gmail information to ActiveCampaign and send a personalized one-on-one email that will be sent via the Google server. So it looks like it's coming directly from me as a personal message, but it's actually coming through the automation sequence in ActiveCampaign. Okay. That is a huge, huge benefit. It's something I strongly suggest. So maybe initially it comes from, Hyatt Honeypot Marketing or whatever it might be, right? But at a certain point, you want that to come from an individual, right? And write it as if you were typing up an email. So
yeah, and I was gonna say too, just one little quick thing there with ActiveCampaign is really great is that they have a huge amount of templates that you can just, for whatever business that you're looking for, from e-commerce to anything, they have it, and you can click on it, and you can, even if it's not perfect, it does start you off right away. So those templates are actually very handy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the UI is very like user friendly too. I find
is.
it's very like
Mhm.
easy to find stuff. It's well set up.
The only again, like I said, we're very partial to ActiveCampaign.
Yeah.
MailChimp has a very strange kind of two types of sequences. They have an older system and a newer system. It's a bit of a mess. It can get confusing. Not hating on MailChimp, but that's just my experience personally, having worked with it for several years. The only wrong answer is not having any platform at all. And I am shocked to hear at how many companies have got Salesforce, which is not cheap, but they have absolutely no email marketing platform. They have no way to communicate. They have no way to really collect a lead easily. And that is truly the wrong answer, is to have nothing, right? Because if you're just throwing them into a spreadsheet, oh my goodness, then we got problems.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving right along. So, what we're trying to do is kind of help you build through this engagement sequence so that you're really developing these relationships over a reasonable period of time, able to score these people, able to understand, in a big topic like financial services, which specific area of financial services are you? Oh God, I just got triggered. Pip is triggering me here. BCCing all your leads on an email. Yeah, don't do that, please.
Yeah.
That's also it's also against the law, but you do see it from time to time. Companies doing it. It's not good. So we're trying to lead you through this concept of understanding your persona, the CTA, the pain point, the CTA that solves it, how to create content in lead magnet form, get them into your system, build that email sequence, which we just covered a little bit. During this whole process, because you've got their contact information and they're in your audiences, you can then advertise and promote. Like, we could be promoting Live at the Hive to an audience of people that are in our leads database so they can come and watch the live, right? So consider this: a free QA live video once a week as it's happening in the background. So if Justin signs up and I'm the financial advisor and I'm sending him tips on how to start a portfolio, maybe he's replying to an email, because in that email, I'm saying, if you have any questions, reply to this email anytime and I will answer your question for you, right? At the same time, set up that free QA live video, real questions and answers. And this happens in parallel and in tandem. Make sure you schedule it at a specific date and a specific time. If you were hyper aggressive, you do it every single day at noon or something like that. Keep them short. You don't have to do an hour. You could do 10 minutes, rapid fire Q&A, right? And again, this is the same thing we talk about. I think we talked about it last week as well. The biggest roadblock is getting started. And 100% of the time, it's people have these great ideas. They write strategic plans, but like nothing really gets out of the gates, right? So it's, like Nike says, just do it, right? Just get started, just do it. It's always scary at the beginning because nobody's watching, right? So a couple of things: you can actually tell everybody in your sequence that you do this live Q&A, that you're happy to answer their questions at any time. If you are concerned that you don't have enough leads, call your mom, call your dad, call your brother, call your sister, call your friends, call your network, ask them to join. And then behind the scenes, have 20 questions ready to answer. And let's just say I did a live Q&A on TikTok, for example, and I got nothing on TikTok right now. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to write 20 questions down in front of me. And we can do this. We've done this during webinars in order to keep things going. No one's asking a question. Just be like, you know what? Mark just emailed me this question last night, and it's a great question. So I wanted to share it with all of you, right? Should I use Questrade or iTrade or, whatever service? And then you answer the question and you keep up that narrative, even if nobody's there yet at that point. And the reason for that is, it's kind of like at a party where there's dancing, like a grade 8 dance, right? Everybody's lined up against the wall and nobody wants to talk, or nobody wants to dance, I should say, until that one group of kids, or that one kid gets out there like Napoleon Dynamite and just starts dancing, and then everyone else is like, oh, okay, that means it's okay for all of us to dance, right?
Mhm.
It's a very similar process there. So you can use that as a way to ignite your existing leads into engagement.
Yeah, that's a really great idea.
Yeah, break that ice a bit.
Yep. And it's amazing. It gives you an opportunity to personalize your experience, right? So again, let's use this goes for anything. If I had that plant shop, Justin, and it's an e-commerce store, which can be impersonal. You don't really see the people behind it. People still like buying from people they like. If I go live on that Q&A, if I could do a live stream about plants, which I think would be like, that plant store or that plant website would benefit greatly, because I'd watch 10 minutes on not killing the plant you just bought.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
You personalize the experience. It becomes less branded, but there's a person there. And especially when you get into more sensitive topics like your money, your life topics and finance, that's a huge way to break ice using the digital tools that we have available.
Yep.
Okay. So as we work people down this sequence, one of the next things in that step is, one, you're segmenting out people that are not opening at all. Like, don't try to build your lists and build your lead list the point to which you've got 80% of people completely disengaged. Segment them out, and in fact, don't message them, right? So you could create an automation that says, if this person has not opened an email in the last 3 emails, then remove them from this campaign. And you can try something else, like a different reactivation campaign, to engage those people.
Mhm. Yeah, because you don't, obviously, when you do it that way, you're just going to be losing them forever, and that's not what you want. If this specific way doesn't work, don't just keep going for it and hoping for the best. That's not going to be it, and then they'll leave, and then you've lost them forever because they'll never come back. So you got to make sure that you pivot when you need to.
I've seen lead lists of 25,000 people with a 0.001% open rate. Like, you got to purge.
Wow.
It's time to purge that list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And I think a lot of people in business and in marketing, especially in this type of marketing, are hung up on vanity metrics that really don't grow the business. Like,
Yeah.
who cares if you have 20,000 people on your lead list? If you're getting really terrible open rates, it's better to have 200 people and a 30% open rate. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you got to really rationalize it that way. As we go down, and now we're starting to get further down the funnel because we're segmenting people. We've got a very practical email sequence, so we can learn how we can score people. And at various points in a sequence, we can move people into another automation, right, that is specific towards them. And then what you can do is you can record a series of 10-minute webinars. And my suggestion is, webinars are classically just like meetings, 60 minutes long for whatever reason. I believe it's because the default, when calendars, especially online calendars, made it out, just the default was 60 minutes. And now that's like, people have a rule that it's got to be 60. It doesn't. Some of the most effective webinars that we've run were actually 20-minute lunch and learns, where people that attended, we actually sent them, well, now you've got more options. At the time, it was, I believe, a Domino's or Pizza Hut coupon. So they could order pizza. So when they did virtual lunch and learns, you would actually get yourself a pizza delivered, and then you could watch the webinar, right? And it was only 20 minutes long. Now you've obviously got DoorDash or Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats or whatever you could do. So create those mini webinars. It'll be further down the funnel. This is now middle of funnel. And again, these small webinars, you get someone that attends a 10-minute webinar, now you got something, right? You got something to work with, and a personalized email to follow up with them is a great way to kind of move people down into that. By creating a series of them, again, you're more specific. So you will get, hey, you know what? I attended the How to Start a Portfolio webinar, but you later on did one on estate planning that isn't of interest to me right now. And that's another important point about this, is when you look at offering a broad array of services, you've got to figure out, what's the opener? Where do I start? I don't need to talk about building an estate or retirement plan right now. I can talk about building an investment portfolio, or perfect time of year, it's coming up, how to reduce my tax liability, right?
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure if you said, hey, would you be interested in learning how to reduce the amount of taxes you have to pay the government? I think 100% of the people would be interested in that.
Yeah.
No,
There's
for
a
sure.
straw poll there. I don't think anyone's going to say, no, I want to pay the
Yeah.
government more,
No, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you were saying about creating those mini webinars, if you've got a whole bunch, like you say, like you create 10 of them, now you've got them for different parts of the funnel, like you said about not wanting to do it a certain way. You can then save that for later, and you can save that for certain people. So like you don't, just because you're focusing on that, right, doesn't mean that a certain person isn't already farther down. Like they can have certain areas where they are, and that's why you have the webinars already created. So you can provide it to them. And if you've already recorded them, you don't have to attend, you just get to place it, and these people can attend when they can. And yeah, it works well.
Exactly. You know, the more options you give people, the more success you're going to have, and the more available. Like I said, like one of the things with our live stream here and with the podcast is, with the vast majority of our interactions and views come far after the live itself, right? In particular, I had 4 people last week, not this week, last week, say they actually found the live. They were searching, they found the live that they cared about, and that's why they reached out, right? And that could have been a live that was like 4 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So you keep that flexibility going. So just to kind of, I know we're a little bit over here. So once you get through the mini webinars and someone has attended that, and maybe, you know, I would suggest you monitor that chat as well. Offer those individuals that showed up, call it a free one-on-one. Don't call it a consultation. Consultation's a dirty word. It implies a sales pitch, right? And again, nobody like, and I feel sorry for salespeople that have to do this, but nobody wants a sales call. Like nobody wants to say that's a time suck. It does nothing for me. It doesn't help me at all, right? And it's just such a negative kind of connotation. What does work is a solution session, for example. It's like, I want you to tell me your 3 biggest problems, and I'm going to help you work through it for free at absolutely no cost, because you're starting to sell us, so you're building that relationship at that point. So, you know, we see this all the time. It's always in the nuance. People will say, well, yeah, you know what? We did that campaign. Hear it all the time. Well, we did that last year and it didn't work. We tried to use Facebook social videos, didn't work. The problem is it's always about a nuance. It's always a very small thing. It could be the title. It could be the initial hook. It's one word. Like, that's why when people say, oh, we got triggered, like if you like look at the world of psychology, when people get triggered, it is typically not a big thing that causes a trigger, right? Psychologically. It could be something very small that causes people to freak out or to react in a certain way. And you need to treat your digital marketing the same way. So when we say, hey, free one-on-one session, the nuance here is no pressure. Be very clear about that. Be clear about the fact, like, I'm not going to sell to you here. I don't want to sell to you here. I want to hear what your problems are, and I want to do my best to help you solve your problems. Open it up in a casual way, because if you say this consultation, 100% of the people are going to feel like you're trying to sell me something. And, you know, it's like you get that free, they have the free 4-day cruises for that timeshares. I think they still do them. I'm pretty sure.
I think so too.
You know, and okay, so you go on the 4-day cruise and you spend 2 days in this conference center with a bunch of salespeople that are trying to sell you this thing, and it's actually probably one of the most painful things you'll ever experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to wrap this up, now we're getting down to the bottom of the funnel. Again, this is just an example, but a free consulting hour. Then after you do the one-on-one session, then you can say, okay, look, now I have a better idea. And I'm going to go back and I want to put some ideas together for you, something a little bit more tangible. Now you're getting to the point in the relationship where it's okay to start to talk about that sale, right? It's okay because you've provided value, you've built a relationship, you've done all the right things. It's not a dirty word to talk about sales. It's a dirty word to talk about sales when it's too soon.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. And this is where you're putting together the solutions because you know a whole bunch of things about these people already. I'll give you another example. We've worked with several managed service providers over the years, and one of them, what we had come up with from our end is there's a solution called Auvik, and they've got this network scanning tool that can do whiz bang things without getting into technical. Apparently, scan your network in your office and find devices that are turned off. And I'm sure there's other tools like this, but we're marketers, we don't care. The solution is, hey, we want to come onto your site and we're going to run this free test, right? We're going to run this free and give you a network overview of the security of your network, and you'll be able to visually see it. It's 100% free. We usually charge $500 for this, but hey, you know what? You're going to get this thing, and I'm going to find some devices on your network that could be a vulnerability, and I'm here to help. It worked really well. It was great because the companies and the IT teams, and I'm doing this for Dan Duran a little bit there, he's saying LOL. I hope the LOL was about we're marketers, we don't care about the tech. Yeah. The tech is awesome. That's all I know. But the idea is that because it was, hey, I'm just going to come give you this free thing. For IT managers where this MSP was looking to help, okay, good. Dan's saying, yep. But on the MSP side, the team was able to visit someone on site. They were able to meet somebody. The IT manager felt like they were getting something of value that they didn't have today. And it was just a great door opener to start talking about the other things they needed help with. Because particularly with that MSP, IT teams were threatened by the thought of replacement when in fact all they were selling was actually more resources for the IT team. They were never looking to replace anybody. So anyhow, that's just another example of a type of lead magnet. So all in all, and the doggos are barking. Who let the dogs out?
Can you hear that?
Yeah,
no.
It's okay.
Shut up there.
It's Friday afternoon. It's Friday afternoon.
No,
I'm surprised. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say with the free consulting you mentioned, right? Now that you can bring that in, you've already know their pain points. You know exactly what with their free one-on-one as well. You know exactly what's the problem here. Now you can like come up with like maybe a solution for them, and then give them that consultation that actually addresses their problems. And now it's like a full circle. You've done it all, and now they're ready to hear it. Now they're ready to be helped.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're just about to wrap up here. Just a couple of words of warning. Okay, please don't do this stuff. It like a part of my soul dies, and I'll never get it back every time I see this happen. Especially when we put stuff together. If someone downloads a lead magnet, do not pick up the phone within 5 minutes and call them. Right. And don't expect to have an hour-long call after someone has downloaded something that's used. It's too soon. It's too soon. It's too aggressive. You're actually going to hurt your brand, and you're going to hurt yourself by doing this. The caveats to that are if you're in something like emergent, like someone requests a call, right? Like emergency services, or I need a repair service or something like that, obviously. Over-personalizing can also be dangerous too. Like if you send out an email saying, hey, Justin, I noticed that you visited our website last week, read this blog post, opened this email. There's too much. Like we are tracking these things, but you definitely don't want to get into too much and freak people out, right? Like, I mean, I think it's a pretty simple one. Pippa's saying she's loving the memes in this presentation. If you've ever had the joy of joining the Honeypot Marketing Slack team, there are several days where about half the communication happens in animated GIFs and memes. So yes, it's part of how we do it.
Yeah.
Ignoring the lead on the other side of that. So if you're not monitoring the replies and you're not on top of that, sending over templated communications, there's time and place for brand. But look, nobody likes, I mean, if Amazon says things like if Amazon sends me the top 10 deals for related things, I don't mind those because I'll probably buy some of them. But overly templated communications definitely will not win in this because you're building relationship using digital mediums, right? Oh, we got a comment from Anko Wimbush. Great job. Fantastic tips as a salesperson. Oh, well, there you go. We
Thanks,
use sales. I wasn't going to give that one away, Yvonne, but
It's
hey,
okay. Yeah.
but she's a salesperson and she found it. She's using Salesforce and Leadfeeder, both very good platforms, for sure. Well, you're welcome, Anka, Mom. You're welcome. Hopefully, this is some stuff that you can, pass on to your marketing teams. And I think it's really important too that the sales teams and the marketing teams really get together on this stuff and really kind of dig into that experience of nurturing, because salespeople are some of the most knowledgeable, whether they know it or not, about how they built that relationship, right? Like sometimes it's like, well, we went out, went to a networking group. We started talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs because we're both into hockey. And then we started talking about video games. Oh, and then our kids are the same age. And then we saw each other at a hockey game. And like, it's amazing how these relationships can develop. And the salespeople typically have that insight into what it was that started building that relationship and how you go from A to Z. So, all right, everyone, we're way over again. We're an hour. Well, we're ambitious.
Yeah.
Little bees, I guess. We're ambitious. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully you found that informative. How to go from a zero engagement and a new lead to an engaged prospect and hopefully a closed sale. So thanks everybody for joining. We will see you next week on Live at the Hive Digital Marketing from the Trenches. Same B time, same B channel. We are out of here.